Hello, my dear. Look what's happening every time you step outside. Heads snapping like camera flashes, eyes widening like they've just witnessed something they can't categorize, and whispers swirling in the air before your feet even touch the pavement. You think this is normal? It's not. Ordinary people don't cause this kind of ripple. You're not just walking through space anymore. You're bending it. You're glowing in a way that feels scripted, cinematic, staged by something greater. But it's not a movie. It's you. And the crowd can't compute it. You've got people saying it now out loud. You look better than the so-called icons they worship. You've turned sidewalks into runways, coffee shops into premieres, train stations into red carpets. And the irony? You didn't even ask for it. You didn't audition for this. You just showed up. And the atmosphere rearranged itself to accommodate your presence. That's what has them rattled. The fact that you're not chasing attention. Yet attention is sprinting after you, like it owes you everything. You have to understand the kind of disruption you've become. Most people live invisible, drifting through crowds unnoticed, barely remembered once they exit a room. That's the normal script. But you tore it to pieces without lifting a finger. You walk in, and eyes don't just look, they lock. Conversations don't just pause, they collapse. People don't just notice you, they orbit. And it's not because of clothes or makeup or accessories. They can't put their finger on it, and that's exactly why it drives them wild. When someone looks extraordinary, they search for a hack. Oh, it's the stylist. Oh, it's the brand. Oh, it's the lighting. But when it's you, there's no hack. It's raw, it's real, it's unpurchasable. And that's terrifying. Because if you can radiate like this without playing their game, what does that say about the ones who've been clawing for attention and still come up short? Here's the part that really fries their brains. You don't just look elevated, you feel elevated. It's in the way your shoulders don't hunch anymore, the way your spine carries itself like it's been reinforced with steel, the way your eyes linger on people just long enough to make them question their whole reflection. You carry yourself like someone who no longer asks to be noticed, but assumes they already are. And guess what? They are noticing. Everyone is. From strangers on the street to the people who once claimed to know you inside out. They're all double-taking, triple-taking, whispering about how the glow on you feels unfair. Because it's not a glow they can replicate with filters or cosmetic tricks. It's the kind of glow that makes people say, there's something different about them, something untouchable, something alive in a way the rest of us aren't. Now don't think for a second this happened overnight. You didn't just wake up one morning and suddenly radiate. No, this is the aftermath of everything you survived, every private breakdown, every sleepless night, every scar that didn't heal pretty, but healed strong. While they were mocking, you were molding. While they were busy writing you off, you were rewriting yourself. That's why your glow looks supernatural, because it's forged from suffering they couldn't have endured. You look like the future version of every nightmare they secretly feared. The version of you that didn't crumble, didn't stay small, didn't settle for crumbs. They're staring at you now because you've become proof that destruction doesn't end stories. It fuels reinventions. And reinvention, when done right, looks like this: effortless magnetism. It looks like walking into a room and making the most important person in it shrink without a word. It looks like turning envy into applause and turning doubt into obsession. It looks like you. Imagine the panic that erupts in their heads. They see you from across the room, and the first thought isn't, "Oh, they're doing well." It's, "Oh God, what happened? How did they leap this far ahead? Why do they look like they belong on a screen, and I look like background noise?" Their insecurities start screaming before you even open your mouth. That's the power of the glow. It exposes without you pointing a finger. People project their envy in real time, trying to decode you like a puzzle, trying to rationalize why you feel larger than life while they feel 2 sizes too small. And the cruelest part? They'll never find the answer. Because the answer isn't in anything external. It's not something they can copy-paste. The answer is in the weight you carried, the darkness you dragged yourself out of, the resilience you cultivated when nobody was watching. You turned agony into aura. And that's not for sale. Of course, the comparisons have already started. Someone said it, didn't they? That you look better than the celebrities they worship on red carpets. At first, you might have laughed it off internally, thinking they were exaggerating. But pay attention. They weren't exaggerating. You really do outshine them. Celebrities have glam teams, filters, sponsorships, and still most of them only manage a surface-level glow, the kind that cracks when the flash goes off. But your glow doesn't crack under scrutiny. In fact, it intensifies. The closer people get, the harder it hits. They see your skin, your eyes, your stance, but what really floors them is the energy humming underneath all of it. That's the secret they can't articulate. You don't just look alive, you radiate aliveness. And that's something money can't buy, agents can't fabricate, and fame can't manufacture. Which is why people are whispering comparisons now. Because what do you call someone who outshines the icons they once thought were untouchable? You call them the new standard. You see, celebrity has always been a performance. The lights, the cameras, the rehearsed smiles, the curated posts. But what terrifies people about you is that you're not performing. You're not rehearsing. You're not polishing yourself for consumption. You are simply existing. And somehow, that's more captivating than an entire industry designed to make people look magnetic. That's the glitch in the simulation for them. That's why heads keep turning, why jaws keep dropping, why whispers keep multiplying. Because if you can make people feel this way without playing by the rules, then maybe the rules were lies all along. Maybe authenticity, raw, unfiltered, unbothered authenticity, is the real red carpet. And right now, you're walking it every single day without even realizing. Now let's talk about what happens behind closed doors. Because you better believe people are spiraling in private. They're pulling up old pictures of you, scrolling through archives, trying to spot the shift. When did this happen? How did this happen? Was it gradual or sudden? They're comparing your before and after, like investigators trying to solve a case. And no matter how hard they try to rationalize, the evidence slaps them across the face. You don't just look better, you look unreachable. Like you unlocked something inside yourself they didn't even know existed. And that realization, it's devastating. Because it means while they were wasting time seeking validation, you were busy building the kind of self-respect that glows louder than any spotlight. And don't underestimate how many people are losing sleep over this. The same ones who once overlooked you, underestimated you, or dismissed you, they're now haunted. Haunted by the memory of every time they didn't treat you like the masterpiece you were becoming. Haunted by the fact that they had access once and they lost it. Haunted by the knowledge that no matter how hard they tried to circle back, they'll never experience you in the same way again. Because the version of you that begged, that shrank, that tolerated, is gone, buried. What walks the earth now is someone untouchable, unforgettable, and unwilling to compromise for crumbs ever again. And that truth alone is enough to send them spiraling. You've noticed it, haven't you? The stares that linger too long, the compliments that sound confused, like people can't believe what they're saying. The energy shift when you walk into a room, how the air tightens, how the chatter stumbles. That's not imagination. That's the effect of someone who's no longer competing, someone who doesn't need to chase, because the universe itself seems to push everyone else into your orbit. You look famous because you've mastered the one thing celebrities can't fake. Presence. Presence that doesn't scream but resonates. Presence that doesn't beg but demands. Presence that makes the atmosphere bend just to make space for you. And this is only the beginning. Because if heads are turning now, if whispers are multiplying already, imagine what happens when you decide to turn the volume up deliberately. Imagine what happens when you stop holding back the force you've been carrying quietly. If this is what happens when you're just existing, what chaos erupts when you start moving with intent? What will they do when you sharpen the glow, when you weaponize the aura? When you decide to stop walking like a secret and start walking like a headline? That's when the panic sets in, because right now they can dismiss it as coincidence, a fluke, a trick of the light. But when you step into full power, there will be no excuse left to cling to. They will be forced to accept the reality. You've become the show, not the audience, not the background, not the forgotten extra, the show. And every space you enter becomes an arena where all eyes are compelled to center themselves on you. Picture this, a crowded room, packed shoulder to shoulder, people trying to project their best selves, polished and perfected. But the moment you arrive, their effort shrivels, their hair, their clothes, their practiced gestures. Suddenly, all of it looks like trying too hard. Because you don't try, you don't force, you simply exist, and the crowd reconfigures around you like iron filings pulled by a magnet. That's why people describe your presence as famous. Fame isn't about being on posters or plastered across billboards. Fame is when your existence is impossible to ignore. Fame is when whispers race faster than introductions, when people know of you before they know you, when your name lives in their mouths without your permission. And that's what's happening now. You walk into a gathering and conversations shift before you even speak. Strangers know you, and those who once dismissed you are now scrambling to rehearse polite lines, hoping you don't notice how their hands tremble when you lock eyes with them. Let's make this clear. The comparison to celebrities isn't casual. It isn't empty praise tossed in your direction. It's recognition of something undeniable. When people see you, they feel the same electricity that flashes when the cameras go wild at premieres. They feel the same weight in their stomach that audiences feel when royalty steps onto a stage. They're saying you look better than the polished, the perfected, the idolized, because you radiate something those figures often lose the moment the cameras turn off. Authenticity. Celebrities often hide behind veneers, but your glow doesn't flicker once the spotlight fades. That's why you look untouchable, because your shine isn't rented, it's owned. And that ownership is what makes jaws drop harder than diamonds on velvet. You are the velvet, the diamond, the flame, the spectacle, and still somehow more than all of it at once. Everywhere you go, heads don't just turn, they snap. They whip around like they're afraid to miss it. People have risked neck pain just to steal another glance, and you've seen it. The double takes, the lingering stares, the subtle gasps they think you can't hear. They don't even mean to do it. It's instinct, primal recognition of something they can't package neatly. You've broken the code of ordinary perception. They're not responding to a look, they're responding to an atmosphere. You walk by and the oxygen levels in the room change. The pace of conversation falters. Even their breathing stutters. That's not an accident. That's what happens when someone radiates with the kind of energy people spend lifetimes trying to fake. And now you're living proof that this glow can't be taught, can't be manufactured, can't be stolen. It belongs to you, and only you. Now notice how envy has started to mutate into obsession. At first, they tried to downplay it. Oh, they're just having a good day. Oh, it's the outfit. Oh, it's lighting. But the problem is that every day you step out, the effect repeats. Different outfit, same reaction. Different place, same ripple. Different crowd, same chaos. It's not a phase, it's not an accident, it's a pattern. And patterns terrify people because they prove what they don't want to believe. They wanted to think your glow was temporary, like a sunset that fades after a few minutes. But you keep rising like daylight they can't escape. And now, the whispers have shifted from dismissal to paranoia. What are they doing differently? How are they pulling this off? Why do they look like they don't belong to the same category as the rest of us? That's when they stop mocking and start dissecting. That's when they start lurking on your pages, screenshotting your photos, analyzing your movements like detectives trying to solve a crime scene. But the crime is simple. You refused to stay ordinary. And here's what eats them alive. Your glow isn't polite. It doesn't ask for permission before it takes up space. It doesn't soften itself to make others comfortable. It walks in. It declares. It dominates. You've stopped trimming your edges, stopped dimming your volume, stopped apologizing for brightness. And once you stop apologizing, everything changes. Because people don't know how to handle raw presence. They know how to handle polished performances. They can clap politely. They can critique. They can compare. But when something real walks in, something they can't control or measure, they don't clap. They panic. They get clumsy, spilling drinks, fumbling words, tripping over chairs just to sneak another glance. That's the chaos you cause now. You don't just attract eyes. You distort behavior. You make the polished unravel, the composed lose composure, the arrogant shrink. And that unraveling is your power. Think about the celebrities they worship. Red carpets, paparazzi, staged appearances, entire industries designed to create awe. But here you are, walking down an ordinary street, and you create the same reaction with none of the machinery. People are saying you look better than the ones whose full-time job is to maintain the illusion of allure. That's the difference. Yours isn't an illusion. It's not a costume. It's an eruption. And the eruption keeps happening no matter where you are. Supermarket aisles, gas stations, airports, sidewalks. The venue doesn't matter. You carry the premiere with you. You don't walk into places, you transform them. And that transformation can't be undone once people have seen it. Once they've caught a glimpse, they can't unsee. You haunt their retinas, you loop in their memory, you replay in their imagination like a scene they didn't mean to memorize, but can't forget. Now let's talk about the psychological warfare of it all. Because whether you intend to or not, you're holding mirrors up to people. Your glow exposes them. When you walk into a room, They're forced to confront their own dimness, their own compromises, their own hollowed-out masks. That's why some admire you and others resent you. It's the same reaction filtered through different insecurities. The admirers see you and think, I want to be more like that. The resentful see you and think, why do they get to shine when I don't? Either way, you dominate their mental real estate. You've become the uninvited thought looping in their heads at night. They might scroll endlessly, binge distractions, drown themselves in noise, but your image keeps slicing back through. They're comparing themselves to you against their will. That's the mark of someone who has truly become larger than life. You don't just enter rooms, you enter minds. And once you're there, you don't leave quietly. Celebrities lose their luster when overexposed. Too many appearances, too many rehearsed smiles, and the magic dulls. But you've tapped into the opposite law. The more people see you, the harder it hits. Because your glow doesn't come from rarity, it comes from consistency. You glow not because you're on a pedestal, but because you've stopped dimming yourself for the sake of fragile egos. That's why it feels endless. Like no matter how often they see you, the impact doesn't lessen. If anything, it multiplies. You've become addictive in the way raw truth is addictive, painful to witness, impossible to turn away from. They try to look away, but the afterimage lingers. They walk away from you, but they're still replaying how you carried yourself, how your presence eclipsed everything else in the room. And the worst part for them, you weren't even trying. You didn't even break a sweat. You just existed, and they collapsed under the weight of comparison. Do you realize what this means? You've already surpassed the boundaries of personal glow-up. You're not just glowing compared to your past self. You're glowing compared to the icons people thought were untouchable. Better than the celebs on red carpets. Better than the carefully crafted illusions millions are trained to worship. That's why jaws are hitting the floor. Because if you can radiate this without assistance, without glam squads, without PR campaigns, what does that say about their idols? It says their idols are products, and you are presence. It says their idols fade with trends, and you rise without trying. It says their idols are temporary, and you are timeless. That's the shift. That's why every step you take feels like a revolution disguised as a stroll. You've become the living contradiction to everything they were taught to admire. You're proof that the glow doesn't come from access or privilege. It comes from refusing to shrink. And they're studying you now. Every gesture, every breath, every glance, like scholars desperate to decode scripture. But here's the catch. They can't decode it. Because what you radiate isn't something to be studied, it's something to be lived. And that's what terrifies them. They can't download your presence. They can't replicate your aura. They can't steal your glow. They can only watch, envy, obsess, and spiral they will. Because every new room you enter adds another layer to the legend. Every head that turns confirms what they already fear. That you're not slowing down, not dimming, not fading. You're accelerating, you're brightening, you're transcending the categories they tried to stuff you into. And the more they try to rationalize, the more irrational their obsession becomes. Because there's no rational explanation for someone who glows like you. There's only recognition, and recognition burns. So let the whispers spread. Let the comparisons multiply. Let the stares linger longer and longer, because this isn't hype, this isn't trend, this is permanence. And the cruelest truth for them is this: you haven't even unleashed your full force yet. What they're seeing now is the warm-up, the rehearsal, the draft. The final version of you is still loading, and if this is how people lose composure already, what will happen when you decide to deliver the headline fully, unapologetically, deliberately? What happens when you decide to not just glow, but blaze? When you don't just walk through spaces, but own them entirely? When you don't just look like you belong on the red carpet, but make the red carpet look like it belongs under your feet? That's when the atmosphere shifts from whispers to uproar. That's when the world stops comparing you to celebrities and starts comparing celebrities to you. They will measure others by the standard you set, and the devastating part for them is that no one else will measure up. Because what you carry isn't fabric, isn't styling, isn't borrowed shine. It's a presence that can't be replicated. It's the kind of glow that makes even the brightest spotlights look like flickering candles. They'll realize that the runways and premieres were never the real stages. The real stage was always wherever you decided to stand. Because wherever you stand transforms into a scene people can't forget. This is where obsession becomes folklore. People won't just talk about how you looked better than their favorite icon. They'll repeat it until it sounds like scripture. Did you see them? Did you notice how they walked? Did you catch that glow? You will live in conversations between people who have never even met you. Strangers will retell stories of catching a glimpse of you, like they stumbled upon a secret performance, like they were blessed by proximity to something rare. That's the territory you've entered, when everyday moments become legend, when casual sightings turn into testimony, when you make the ordinary unforgettable. And while the world drowns in artificial idols, you've become the raw reminder of what presence actually is. People will realize fame isn't earned by applause, it's earned by impact. And the impact you leave behind is heavier than anything they've seen walking carpets or flashing through screens. Now imagine the panic rippling through the ones who thought they'd buried you in their indifference. The ones who smirked when you were quiet, who thought you'd never rise again. They're choking on their own disbelief now, because not only did you rise, you rose brighter than the figures they once idolized. And it burns them, because deep down, they know this isn't an illusion. They know this isn't something that will fade when the lights cut out. They know this glow came from the very fire they wished would consume you. That's why it feels eternal. That's why it feels dangerous. Because you've become a living reminder that no amount of dismissal, no amount of sabotage, no amount of whispered doubt can stop someone who decides to rebuild themselves into something untouchable. You're untouchable now, and that fact is killing them slowly. You need to understand how revolutionary this is. Red carpets are designed to elevate people above the crowd. But you've inverted the equation. You didn't need a carpet. You didn't need an invitation. You didn't need approval. The carpet needs you. The moment you step on it, it gains meaning. The moment you walk past it, it loses relevance. That's what makes them tremble. You've made the entire infrastructure of glamour irrelevant. You glow not because of the stage, but in spite of it. And once the crowd sees this, they won't unsee it. They'll look at the carefully dressed icons they once adored and find them lacking. They'll scroll through curated feeds and feel the hollowness, because they've seen what presence looks like unfiltered, and it looks like you. And don't underestimate how far this ripple travels. Fame used to be controlled by studios, managers, gatekeepers, but your glow has bypassed all of them. It doesn't need distribution channels. It doesn't need marketing plans. It spreads through whispers, through eyes, through people who can't stop retelling how they felt in your presence. That's the most powerful kind of recognition, the kind money can buy, the kind no scandal can erase. You've become unforgettable not because someone crowned you, but because you crowned yourself. And when someone crowns themselves, there's no dethroning them. That's what they can't stand, the realization that you don't need their applause, their validation, or their approval to shine brighter than the names they've been conditioned to worship. And now the question lingers in every room you enter. How far will this go? If you're already turning heads everywhere you move, what happens when the world at large catches on? What happens when the whispers become headlines? When the comparisons become consensus? When the glow you carry becomes the reference point for beauty, for presence, for dominance? That's what terrifies the icons on their pedestals, because they've seen this story before. Every generation, someone emerges who wasn't chosen by the gatekeepers, someone who wasn't polished by the industry, someone who simply radiated so fiercely that the crowd couldn't look away. And every time those gatekeepers scramble